Hello, I'm Adam Robertson, and you're listening to This is Ibrox, the Rangers podcast. Please stay at home, protect the NHS, and save lives.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to This is Ibrox, the Rangers podcast. My name is Scott Patterson, and as part of our exclusive selection of interviewees for this pod, I'm delighted to welcome 90s Dutch winger Pieter Huistra along to speak to us about his career, his move to Rangers, his time at the club and in the city of Glasgow, and all of the wonderful stuff he's went on to do since. Pieter, hello, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to join, and always nice to talk about Rangers, Ibrox, so I'm ready for it.
Good man, you're more than welcome. So listen, it's obviously a unprecedented time across the world just now. You're in Uzbekistan,
Yes.
which we'll cover a little bit later as the chat goes on. Can you tell us a little bit about how the current COVID-19 problem is affecting your daily duties where you are just now?
Yeah, it's like in most places of the world, it's completely disrupted. Here in Tashkent, where I live, the whole city came to a complete still stand. It's a total lockdown. You cannot go anywhere. You have to stay in. You can only go to the supermarket quickly with one person. And so no training. We train the players online at the moment. We make videos. We make programs they can do at home.
Uh-huh.
So at the moment, that's the situation.
So as a coach, you'll find that your daily duties are obviously quite disrupted by this. You'll obviously be keeping in touch with the players and the sort of other members of the coaching staff on a regular basis, I would assume, yes?
Yes, and in a way, it's also a time to get a little bit more contact with individual players, because normally you see them in a group, and now you have to contact them one by one, and it gives also opportunity to coaches, to myself, to ask a little bit more, to speak a little bit more, what kind of problem they have with the training, how is the situation at home. So Johan Cruyff used to say every disadvantage have advantages.
Absolutely.
So that's how I look at it as well now.
And I assume you personally, you're well, and there's nothing that you're overly concerned about over there. There's been no symptoms that you've received yourself, no?
No, luckily not. The situation in Uzbekistan is not too bad. They were very quick to react, the government. And in this kind of countries, they can lock down very quickly. So we have very few cases and very few people, luckily enough, who didn't survive it. So that's good. But yeah, still the rules are strict, and you have to stay inside. And after 4 weeks, it gets a little bit boring, of course.
Absolutely. I think from a personal point of view, and here in Scotland just now, we are experiencing similar difficulties yourself. And I've got 2 young kids, and they are they're into a routine as such, as far as nursery and school and various care is concerned. And that has been completely blown out the water by this. So you're very aware that there's a huge change on for everyone, from a wee person to an older person. It's a unprecedented, as I say.
Yeah. In my time, I never experienced anything like it. So it is strange, but we have to cope with it, and we have to make the best of it. You have to stay positive.
Indeed, absolutely. So again, welcome to the podcast. Early career in Holland. You started off at Groningen for a couple of seasons before moving to Veendam and then eventually 20 Enschede. Were you always used at these clubs as a left winger as your early career started out? Yeah.
Yes. In my family, all my uncles, we only had left wingers, so there was only one option for me when I started playing football. It was left wing. I had one coach. He said, "No. I think you should be midfielder." But my parents as well. We said, "No. You have to be left winger." So afterwards,
did your father play professionally, Pieter?
No. My uncles played very high in amateur football in Holland.
Okay.
And they were always left winger. So for some reason, everybody had in his head that I should become a left winger. That's how it went.
Almost naturally.
Yes, yes. That was not really naturally. I could have been a midfielder also, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when I look back at it. But yeah, I don't mind. It was good. It brought me a lot. So afterwards, I'm certainly happy about it.
Absolutely, of course. So again, early career sort of stuff. When you were coming up through Groningen and Veendam and then eventually 20, was there any coaches that you worked on in either of those three clubs indeed that had an influence on what you would then go on to do now, or even as part of your playing career?
Yeah, I think every coach you have in your career, especially when you're young, has an influence. I had one at Groningen. He took me to Veendam when I was recovering from an injury I had early on when I was 18. And he helped me at Veendam to come back to my best form. And that's when I was bought by FC Twente, one of the better teams at that moment in Holland. We had very famous Dutch coach, later national team manager Kees Rijvers.
Yeah.
He helped me a lot. He was also more or less a player who played on the wings. He played attackingly. So he gave me a lot of good tips. And I played there 3 years, and then I went to Rangers already. So they helped me a lot.
So, as you've said, 20 in Holland, across to Glasgow. How did the move to Rangers happen? How did that all materialise?
Yeah, it was also a strange story. In my last year in FC Twente, I became an international player for Holland. In that time, there was no Bosman. So at Twente, I was playing for a very low salary, a very minimum contract. But the rules at that time were, if you wanted to go to, if somebody wanted to buy you, even when your contract was finished, they have to buy you, and they could use, especially for Holland, the amount you earned times 10 or 12 at that times. They used a factor, they calculated it. And I cost 3 million guilders. That's now not too much money. Then it was a lot. But if you went to another country, not Holland, I only costed 1 million. So I was talking very seriously with PSV, and at that time, in '88, they won the European Champions Cup. So they were a very good team, and it was, for me, would have been a very good move to go there.
Who was in charge of Eindhoven at that point, Peter?
At Hiddink was in charge at that time. So they blocked that, Twente, because Twente, they asked too much money. So I said, okay, then I go to another country. And yeah, soon as met my agent, and he said, I'm looking for a left winger. My agent said, okay, I have somebody who wants to go. And so he said, okay, let him come over to Italy. We have a training camp there. I was there for a week in Il Ciocco, in Italy. And he said, okay, well, I'm not, it looks good, but I want to see you in a game in Scotland. So I flew to Glasgow. We played a closed door game at Hampden against Queen's Park. And after that, he said, okay, you can sign. So that's how it went. A long way, but it was good.
So when you were at Il Ciocco, that was the sort of traditional camp that we used for years, wasn't it? When they were looking to just get the guys into a manner of fitness prior to the season starting. It was a sort of regular haunt for the guys to go back and forward there.
Yes, it was. Yeah. After that, I went a few more times there. So yeah, it was a good place to have a pre-season. Yeah.
So one thing we get in Scotland, we hear a lot of people speak about our club is important that they have Rangers fans in the changing room, in the dressing room. When you were, of course, with us, guys like Gorham, Gough, Brown, Ian Ferguson, Durant and McCoist were all around, big Rangers men. Did they help you settle into life in Glasgow when you arrived in 1990?
When I arrived, I was completely green. I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have any pounds or whatever because I came from Il Choco. I wasn't prepared. I had to fly straight to Glasgow. So, I had some people who helped me a lot in Glasgow. Some of the players also, they helped me a lot. To be honest, I had a lot of problem in the beginning to understand the Scottish boys.
That's hard to believe.
I thought my English was okay. In school, I passed my exam, but when I came to Glasgow, it was completely different. It took me 2 months, and then I could understand what they meant and what they said. But no, they were good guys. We had a lot of fun. They helped me a lot. After training, they took me everywhere. I had to buy some clothes. At that time, Rangers, you had to wear a shirt and tie.
Of course, as it should be.
I never wore a shirt and tie before, so I had to buy that. I think Princess Square was the place they brought me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the garderobe was filled again, and I could sample the life of a Rangers player.
Absolutely. So you spent 5 years at Ibrox, 5 successful years, and looking at your career, it looks like they're the club that you spent the most amount of time. So there must have been something about it that just made it feel like home a little bit, if that makes sense. What made you sort of hang around for that longer period of time than what you did anywhere else?
Yeah, of course. When you arrive at a club like Rangers, you see how big it is, how the supporters, the support abroad, the people coming over, the people that react to you when they hear you go to Rangers. When you look at the history, everything feels big. So it's very nice. It's an honor to be part of that. And also the team was very good, very strong, very coherent. And the players were like friends to each other. Although there was a big competition for places, they always were supporting each other. So that was good. And when you win medals like we did at that time, it's very addictive, and
it's always worth it,
stay.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's worth it, and you want to stay. So I did. I signed a new 2-year contract after 2 years, so it was 4 years. And then the last season was a little bit strange. I had a little bit of a run-in with Walter. I had one interview in Holland where I said, if I don't play, I better leave. And Walter took offense to that. So he refused to offer me a new contract, but he also refused to let me go on a free. So the 5th season, I signed month to month,
right,
till the end of January, and then I went to Japan to play.
So I'll tell you, you're a very brave man. I occasionally see Walter Smith walking back and forward to Ibrox on match day, and he doesn't look like he's the sort of guy you really want to noise up particularly. So kudos to you.
No, but it's also not clever for me, of course, that to threaten. It's like a little bit like a threat. I can understand now when I'm managing myself. I can understand the reaction of the manager. If you don't want to play for this club, okay, then you go. But you cannot go for free at that time. So that was a little bit strange. Yeah. In the end, when he felt also that there was interest from Japan to take me, he said, if it falls through, you have to come to me and we make a contract for you. So he also, because I played good in that last season, and we both were too stubborn to say, okay, let's bury the grudge and just sign a new contract. Yeah. And we both a little bit too stubborn for that, I think. But still, I had a great relationship with Sooners and with Walter Smith. So if I look back at it, it had to be like this, and that's how it went.
That's what I was going to say. So I mean, you had the opportunity to work with Graham Souness and Walter Smith, Walter early in his managerial career, and you could argue relatively early in Souness's managerial sphere as well. Was it clear that these guys would be as successful as they went on to be, particularly Walter, who went on to be arguably one of our most successful managers, certainly the most successful I've seen in my time. And Souness kind of broke the back for Rangers and Scottish football in many different respects. Was it quite clear that these guys were really, really driven coaches and driven individuals?
Oh yeah, certainly they were both driven. They were both completely different personalities. But I think with Souness breaking the ice and Walter Smith backing up and continuing, I think that had to be the right order. Yeah,
Absolutely.
When Walter was assistant, he was a different. He was different in the group than when he had to take over, and that's normal. That's how it is. The role of an assistant manager is different than the role of the manager. So. And he did well. It took him a few months, but we had a good team, and the team helped him as well to settle in as a manager. And after that, he took over and he built on, and especially bringing in some very good players, and that could continue the success we had.
I'm going to ask you about your first Old Firm game at Ibrox. I think for a European person coming to Glasgow to watch the Old Firm game, it must be quite eye-opening to sit in the stands and watch it. I think to be there and be part of it on the turf must be something really quite incredible, and I don't think it's something you can really quite appreciate unless you've done it yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Dave?
Yeah, that's also strange. I never seen a game before, so the first time I was in the stadium for a Rangers Celtic, it was a real game, and I was in the starting lineup. Yeah. And I just played my own game. Of course, there's a lot more noise, and of course, I know that's a rivalry, but I played my own game, and I was even elected man of the match for that game.
Absolutely.
But when I evaluated and I looked back at it, I thought, oh, that is special.
Yeah.
So I never played as relaxed an Old Firm game again after this first one, and probably the first one was my best one I played in. So but then you get into the hurly-burly of it, and yeah, you get into the pace, and you get also crazy. I remember one a red card I got for kicking somebody. So yeah, it's these are strange games, special games. I also remember a semi-final we played in a very rainy Hampden. David Robertson got sent off.
Right. Yeah.
And after 10 minutes already, and we had to play with 10 men. I had to do the left wing all by myself. But
so you were left back as well, of course, at that point.
Yes, yeah? I was left back, left wing. I never run as much in one game as in that one. But Kosti scored, and we won the game. So we went to the final, and it was very, very good feeling. One of the best games, one of the best feelings I ever had after a game. Anyway.
It's funny you mentioned that. Martin, one of my colleagues on the podcast, spoke a couple of weeks ago to David Robertson. They spoke very fondly of that night as well. He obviously mentioned the fact that he got himself dismissed on the night. He was quick to not mention the fact that you had to do a lot of his donkey work for the rest of the game. He certainly never mentioned that. I remember watching that game, and it was a horrible night. You're absolutely right. I almost remember McCoy's the goal that he scored. It kind of took a long time to just drift over the line because the ground was so saturated with rain. It was a really horrible night. So it's interesting to hear you talk about how you try to keep play your own game in the Old Firm Old Firm ties. You must be very aware that playing at Ibrox against Celtic maybe takes on a different, or you rather take on a different persona if you are playing maybe Hamilton at Ibrox or Hearts at Ibrox for that matter. The atmosphere, the general adrenaline, there must be a difference in that sense, yeah?
Oh yeah, big difference. Yeah, it's only when you go through the tunnel, the noise that meets you when you reach the field. It's already much louder than in a normal game. And the build up to the game, of course, the whole week, the papers, the fans, everybody talks about it, and afterwards also. And when you win, the talk afterwards is very good. But if you lose, the talk afterwards not so good. Fortunately, in my time, we didn't lose much. So
indeed, we remember it well.
yeah.
So in the sort of 5 years, I'll not cover the full 5 years you were at Ibrox, because you rightly say it was a really successful time for you. You've bagged a lot of medals and you had a great time. I want to focus in on the 1992-93 European Cup run, where we played Lyngby and Leeds, and then got into that sort of group stage where we played Bruges and Marseille. The Leeds game was obviously given huge publicity, with it being the sort of Battle of Britain, etc. But importantly, of course, there was no away fans allowed in Ibrox or Elland Road. Can you remember much about these ties, Peter?
Yeah, both ties were very hyped. There was a big hype, a lot of tension, comparable to the old firm games. But then, because it was in Europe, it was even more special.
Indeed.
So everybody talked about the Battle of Britain, and that's how it felt. But we had a group at that time that always was ready to take the challenge. And from the first game, from the first minute in the first game, I was a substitute in that game, and I came on later on in the match. But you could feel the determination already before the game. The players were ready for it. They wanted to show themselves. This was the opportunity to do it, to show yourself into Europe, to show yourself into Britain. And they did well. They came back. They kept into the game. They were ready for the second game. Second game, I was in the stand. I didn't play.
Yeah.
But the whole atmosphere also at Elland Road was electric, and we scored early on, and it was never in doubt, really. When you looked at the game, it was very, very strong performance also in the away game.
Yeah, and I think at that point, Leeds had a lot of decent players. Dare I say, Gordon Strachan was obviously in their team. They had Gary Speed as well, who was a wonderful midfielder, and of course Gary McAllister, who scored at Ibrox, on current assistant manager. He scored an absolute perler at Ibrox, if I remember right. It was a really, really good goal. Mm-hmm. The two goals that we scored at Elland Road were excellent, in particular McCoist's diving header. The second one.
Also Hadley, also.
Yeah,
Hadley
absolutely.
was also. Yeah.
So these must have been exciting times to be playing at Rangers, knowing that we were doing well domestically, and as that was going on, we also had this European run going on into the group stages, and we're in with Marseille, Bruges, and AN other, which escapes me just now. You scored in
Moscow.
Bruges, if memory serves. Moscow. Yeah. You scored in Bruges, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Also, a game I have good memories of. Also, team-wise, we played a very strong away game there, and the first few minutes we were a little bit under pressure. And Club Bruges was a good team at that time, but we also fought ourselves into the game, and we were unlucky to go 1-0 down. And the second half was probably one of the best 45 minutes I've ever played with the team, part of this team, so determined, so strong, fighting for every ball. And in the end, I felt even a little bit unlucky that we only scored one, because we really dominated them away from home in the second half. And even when we had some injuries, even when we had some people missing, with some young players in the team, we really played as a unit, and we were very determined. We played one of the best games of the best second halves I ever played in.
Yeah. The big question clearly has to be the doubleheader against Marseille. 2 fantastic games of football for 2 entirely different reasons. I remember us going to the Velodrome and looking at the Marseille team. Then they had a lot of fantastic players, guys like Soze and Basil Bowley, who of course signed for Rangers eventually. They had Didier Deschamps, Rudi Voller, Alan Boksic. They also had the boy Pele that played for them as well. And we were more than a match for them in the Velodrome. Durant's goal over there was a wonderful effort. When you look at it now, it's perhaps one of the sweetest volleys ever struck. It was a great goal, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I even felt that the away game we played better than the home game. The home game, a little bit overawed by the names, I think. Also, they played very well. That we were lucky to score the equalizer, although it was a very good goal. But the away game in Marseille, we were certainly equal. That's how it felt on the pitch, anyway.
Yeah.
And then the draw was more than right, I think. But Marseille went on to the final and they beat AC Milan. So that was the team to beat at that time. So that says enough about Marseille as well, that they were a very good team at that time.
Yeah. I think there is a feeling amongst parts of the fans that we were almost cheated out of getting into the final after all the things that happened with Bernard Tapie, etc. As a player who was involved in that sort of a period of time, do you ever think that was a missed opportunity for you to get to the final as account of what they were up to, or do you just see it as the game we lost the game effectively?
No, to be honest, it feels a little bit like that, yeah, that you're cheated a little bit, because Marseille won all of a sudden. They won 6-0 from, what was it, Dynamo Moscow or CSKA Moscow. And it was a good team. We had all kinds of problems with that team. So it was not normal for Marseille to so easily win 6-0. We always felt something was wrong with that game, but what can you do? You can only remember the performances we did ourselves as a team. Yeah. And we know ourselves as players, but also supporters, that we were very close to the very top in Europe at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, to get the opportunity to mix it with guys like Desailly and Bowley, Frank Soze, all real leaders in their game at that point across Europe. So it would have been a huge thing for you guys to come up toe to toe with these guys and not let yourself down and really give them a game.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we can still be proud of that, and we have the very good memory about that season. Not only because of the Champions League, but also because we won the treble, and we were, I think, on a 44 game streak not to lose. So
that's right.
So it was a very special season where we felt invincible almost.
Yeah, I think that period of time there was a lot of strong-minded guys just around the club in general, wasn't there? I mean, being led by Walter in the first instance, certainly, but I think there was a lot of just strong-minded Rangers men, if you like, in and around the club that were driving everyone on.
Yeah, but also guys like Stuart McCall and of course John Brown and Richard Gough, that kind of guy, the English players, Trevor Stephen, good players.
Yeah,
but also determined players. They wanted to win. Some of these 44 games we were 1-0 down, and then they looked at each other and they put up 2 gears in tempo, and then we didn't play till 1-1, but we played a 2-1 or 3-1, and then everybody looked at each other again and said, okay, now we think about the next game already and
more like it.
Calm down a little bit. So, but it was very determined at that time. I many times I still, when I now coach teams and when I played in other teams afterwards, it's still something I try to bring in, and I think a lot about it, how I can tell these stories to players and how I can bring these players to that same determination. So
Yeah.
of course, it was special.
So fast forward to 1995, and suddenly you leave Rangers. Now, I know we kind of spoke about this briefly a little while ago. I actually stay close to where Brockville Stadium used to be, where you scored the 2 goals against Falkirk in the 3-2 victory there. That night or that following day, there was almost a report broke that you were gone, you were away, that was it, you were away to Japan. How did that move come around, and how did you feel about really not getting the opportunity to say goodbye properly?
Yeah, of course, that was something that I regret. Although with scoring 2 goals in your last game, it's a sort of goodbye as well, I think.
Absolutely.
But I knew already 2 weeks before that the Japanese wanted to sign me. We agreed more or less. They agreed with Rangers to pay them a fee, but Rangers said, no, we don't want to leave you, to let you go straight away, because we need you for the coming 2-3 games. So they tried to delay it, and I played these 3 games. Of course, I said, hey, what happens if I get injured or whatever? I said, oh, no problem. We take the contract the Japanese are giving you.
Wow.
So then I thought, then I had to think again. Because of course I loved Rangers, and it was a good time. But I also gave my word already to the Dutch coach Wim Jansen, who was then the coach at the Japanese team. Later on, he went to Celtic. Everybody know that. So I also I couldn't retract my word to him. So I had to go. But although it always hurts, of course, when you have to leave something good for something you don't know yet. But I always have the memory, and I have still many people I'm close with in Glasgow and Scotland. So it's been a great time.
Did you see the opportunity to go to Japan as just something to try and almost hope that it works? From memory, I don't know if at that point Gary Lineker was playing in Japan, but I know he had been. So I don't know if in that point the Japanese football was something that was effectively taken off. Was it a good time to head towards that part of the world to play football?
Yeah, that was the hot time. It was at the time that the Japanese and the Koreans rivaled about who was going to organize the World Cup.
Right, okay.
And especially Japan, they took all the big stars, all the big Brazilians. They took them to Japan. So I was playing with against Dunga, Leonardo, Sampaio, all kinds of good players. Zinho played there. Almost half of the team that was world champion in '94 played at that time in Japan. Some very good Germans playing there. Later on, Gary Lineker also went there. Yeah, it was after that I left already again. So I had 2 great years also in Japan. It was exciting. In the All-Star games, I played together with all these big stars. So
excellent.
Boegwald, Bain, the Brazilians. It was a nice time. Yeah.
So did you find without knowing what age maybe the Brazilians were, did they see the move to Japan almost as I don't want to say a last payday, but also maybe a time when their career was beginning to just drop slightly, and they were using it to almost, I don't know if fill their bank accounts the correct way, but they were using it as an opportunity to still play, but maybe not at the high level that they've been used to previously?
No, I can see most of these Brazilian guys who played in Brazil when they became world champion. They then had offers from Europe, but also from Japan, and the Japan offer was probably better. So many of these guys were not old. Leonardo later on went to Europe, played for AC Milan. So he's now still working at AC Milan. So they were not in at the end of their careers. They were still in full bloom at that time. So it was a very strong league at that time to play in, and a lot of games, a lot of traveling, but also it was nice to be part of it at that time.
Of course. 1996 comes and the opportunity comes up for you to return to Groningen, where it all sort of started for you.
Yeah, I was because Wim Jansen left in Hiroshima, so I also left after 2 years, and because the Japanese season finishes in December, and so not many clubs were wanted to invest in a new player. So I was 6 months on loan at Groningen. I asked for that. They were in relegation problems, so they asked a few older players to come back to help them. So we did, and I played there for 6 months. And then I went to Belgium, to Lierse. There was the Belgian champion at that time. So I played there also Champions League. We won the cup, we won the Super Cup. So I was lucky enough to play in teams that were quite successful. Also in Japan, we were playing 2 times the cup final. So we had a good team there also. I was lucky in that way.
You've got a real medal haul, haven't you? I mean, you really have. You've got a really decent trophy cabinet behind you. It's a huge testament to the dedication you've had in your career. I mean, you're talking about someone who's played in various different countries around the world, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you've won a medal in every country you've played in.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Excellent.
So that was good. Yeah.
Indeed, that's excellent. Great stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd like to move on to some questions about your international career, if I can now. You made your debut for Holland against Italy in 1988.
Yes.
That year, of course, Holland had won the European Championships. How did it feel to sort of be involved with these guys at that level? It must have been quite awe-inspiring at various times in such an early career for you.
Yeah, it was. I was the first new player to come into that team. Arnold Muren, he was 36 when they won the European Championship. So after that, he finished his career. So the left wing position was open, and a few candidates for that. I was the first one who got the opportunity. And against Italy it went well, and so I got a good report, and the coach liked it. So I stayed with the team, and we had some big games qualifying for Italy. West Germany we played at that time.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure on that game because both last game we played each other and both teams needed a point. So we went 1-0 down, and in the second half we made 1-1, and we both qualified in the end. But a lot of pressure on that game, I remember, and unfortunately I got injured just before the World Championships in Italy. They changed the coach as well, and I was just back 3-4 weeks before that championship, but he chose a player from Ajax instead because he had been playing all season.
Okay.
And I was very unlucky to miss that, but that's how it went. And after that, I came back to the team, and I was involved until '92, the European Championships in Sweden.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I got injured again just before that, and I missed it again. And then Overmars came, and he was a very good player, and he did well, and he took over my position. And after Sweden, I never came back into the team. I was in Japan. I was a little bit further away, so it was a lot of good players also coming through on that position after that.
Do you think that the move to Japan perhaps hampered the chances of you being selected again after 1992?
Yeah. In hindsight, yes, it did. Yes, that for sure. And that's how it went. I have no regrets for that. Yeah, it would have been nice to play a few more, but I still have 8 caps, so that's not everybody has that. So
Indeed.
I'm happy with
Absolutely.
that.
Best Dutch player you've played with?
Yeah, difficult to say. When I came in, it was Van Basten, Gullit, Rijkaard, of course, Koeman in that team, all great players.
Indeed.
So if I had to choose, probably Van Basten. He was special, striker, decisive, brutal, but
Quite
also
clinical, wasn't he?
Also, yeah, clinical, but also very refined in his technique.
Uh-huh.
A nice guy also. I did the course with him. I was assistant coach with him at Ajax. So I have a special bond with him also. So I would choose him, yeah. That's the most special player.
I remember when I was growing up, some say I still am.
Me too.
The sort of the 3 Dutch guys that played popularly with Milan, Rijkaard, Ruud and Van Basten, and they were the sort of 3 guys that I almost associated AC Milan with was those 3 Dutch guys, particularly Hulet. I thought he was a wonderful footballer.
Yeah, a very good footballer, very good personality, nice guy also, and always working hard, always helping others. So yeah, also a very good guy. And it's always nice to see these guys, these so-called stars, being very modest, being very hardworking, being very dedicated. Not only looking at themselves, but also knowing that they're part of a team and they know they need the players around them. So they support these players also. So and that was nice to see.
So the curtain comes down on your playing career, and we move into coaching. Tell us a little bit about how that happened for you.
Yeah, it more or less started when I was in Japan. Wim Jansen is a coach. He's crazy about the game. He wants to talk about the game. He wants to ask things about the game. But he had 2 Japanese assistants who didn't speak English very well. So I was more or less his soundboard. He wanted to know from me how was the training. He wanted to know from me what you feel in the game. How did the tactics work? He wanted to explain his exercises to me. So by doing that, he more or less woke me up for what's involved in being a coach, being a manager. And he instilled some passion for that into me. So when I played in Belgium, I immediately started to do the courses. I went up and down from Belgium to Holland to do the courses to become a coach. So and more and more and more, I felt that I wanted to become a coach, and that's how it happened. That's how it started. And when I finished my career, immediately I had the chance to work with the Dutch national team under 17 as an assistant coach. So I was lucky because they said it was a bad group at that time, not a lot of talent. But when you look in hindsight, with Van der Vaart, with Huntelaar, with Van Persie, with it wasn't the worst group ever.
No, it was not.
So that was my debut European Championships under 17 in Israel. And I liked it a lot. So I was ready to become a coach. I went to Groningen. I did the under 19s there. Became an assistant at Vitesse, an assistant at Ajax, and then became the head coach myself. So that's more or less how it went. Steady climb up the managerial ladder.
Excellent. So you've taken a bit of a similar route to what Walter Smith took. Ironically enough, being assistant for a couple of years and then being the top man yourself. How did you find the transition of being assistant and then suddenly being the guy that everyone takes the orders from and everyone looks up to?
First of all, I think it's a requirement. If you want to become a good manager, you have to become a coach, a youth coach, preferably first, and then you have to be lucky enough that you can assist a very good head coach or a very good manager, and then hopefully after 4 or 5 years, you're ready to become a manager yourself, because being a manager, that's completely different than being a youth coach. It's completely different than being an assistant coach, because from the moment you become a manager, everybody's looking at you. Everybody expects the decisions from you. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to be ready for that. And it's very difficult. I sometimes have pity with players who stop their career and immediately become a manager. I know it must be hell for them. I know it must be very difficult. I know they must sit at home in the evening knowing what happens, no control, nothing whatsoever. What do I do now? What I do tomorrow? What do I say to the press? What do I do with the players? It's so much involved in a managerial position. You have to be really ready for it, and you have to understand the process.
Because it can, I think, from a supporter's point of view, you're very aware that everything can change so very quickly, and like it or not, football supporters are a fickle bunch. You can be flavour of the month one week, and you're only one result away from not being the same flavour of the month. So it's very much a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. Yeah, in many ways I'm a supporter myself, so I can also be critical about managers. But when I think of it, I know also what kind of pressures, what kind of powers are playing around them. People within the clubs who want to have a little bit of power, who want to earn a little bit more money, agents, players, directors, everybody wants to have a say and everybody wants to be important. But in the end, especially at the football end of it, it's the manager who's responsible. And that's something also you have to accept when you go into that position. You have to understand very much what you can influence, and that's very important. Stick to that. As a head coach, maybe that's one of the mistakes that I made in the beginning when I was still younger. I wouldn't make that again, but you can only influence what you can really, what's within your reach.
Correct.
And put all your energy into that and not into the other things. And accept it when things are not going well. It can have many reasons. You can try to fix it, but if the pressures are too big, then you have to accept also resignation. That's part of the job, I think.
Have you found huge differences in the varying football cultures that you've been around? So we know you've been in Holland, Scotland, Japan, currently in Uzbekistan, of course. You've done a bit of coaching in Belgium as well, which I'll come to in a second. Do you find that the general philosophies in each of these different countries is or has been different as you've progressed in your coaching career?
Yeah, see, when you go somewhere as a coach, first of all, you speak to the people and you ask about the philosophy. And in Europe, many clubs, they have some sort of philosophy. Some have a little bit, some have quite a lot. And then you can decide, do I fit in that or do I don't, or do I not fit into that? Then you can make a decision. When you go to Asia, they more or less expect you to bring the philosophy, to bring the methodology, to bring the players, to bring the exercises, the training programs and everything, the people, the experts. So they expect more from you in that way. You have to set it up. That's what I see a lot in Asia. I was technical director in Indonesia. You have to set things up. You have to really first examine what they do, what's there already, and then you have to make a setup that you have to create an environment in which especially talents can grow. And in Asia, the big difference between Asia and Europe is that the academy level is completely different. In many countries in Asia, there is no academy level. There is no structure. There is no under 17, under 15, under 13 league.
Right. Okay.
So they have to grow into that. That's a big difference. But yeah, on the other hand, if you play in top football, and now in Pakhtakor it's the champion of Uzbekistan, we play a good game in the Asian Champions League as well. So then you more or less have the same tensions, the same pressures, the same challenges as you have in Europe. So at top level, you just want to win and you want to be stronger and more clever than the opponent and win the games. You want to go to the final of the Asian Champions League. So it's the same as in Europe.
So before we cover on Uzbekistan, where you are just now, I just want to ask you something very quickly about Belgium. I'm a great fan of the Belgium national team and the way that they play and the amount of good players that they have. In De Bruyne, I would suggest they've got one of the best players in the world, if not the best. What are they doing in Belgium, firstly, with regards to producing such good players? But secondly, are they ever going to have that last step to actually win anything?
Yeah, no. I was at the right time in Belgium when I was there in '97. I arrived there. They just completely reorganized the whole youth football in Belgium.
Okay.
They organized youth leagues. They changed the game at youth level. My son Eric, he was at that time 4 or 5 years old. So we wanted to play. He wanted to play football. So we went in the village where we lived in Belgium. We went to the local club and we asked them, "What can he join?" Yeah, no problem. We phoned on Wednesday and he could play on Saturday. He could train immediately. If you went to the training, it was very good. They played 5-a-side games on the quarter field. So they got a lot of touches, these kids. So they got into it straight away. And all over Belgium, like in Holland also, they were playing football on Saturday, on Sunday. And the children brought up with football. And yeah, Belgium was comparable to Holland just before that. They also had many people coming into Belgium from the colonies, coming to Belgium. They also wanted to play. They didn't have much money. They weren't the richest people, so the football was for them a good way of building something, being good at something. So many of the Belgian players, Lukaku, company, also come from these kinds of families.
Yeah.
Who built up the Belgian football. And so they copied a little bit the Dutch system. They made it maybe even better than the Dutch system at that time. But it was successful for them. But it's just hard work from 4 or 5 year olds and then on to the highest level.
Indeed. It's fascinating that Belgium have such a wonderful crop of footballers currently, but you almost would never pick them to win anything. You just don't believe that they've got that sort of sixth gear, if you like, to win, bizarrely enough. And they've got so many good players. Okay, on to current day. You are currently in Uzbekistan with a gentleman called Shota Arveladze, who the Rangers fans know very, very fondly. Speak to us a little bit about Tashkent in Uzbekistan.
Yeah, to be honest, before I went to Uzbekistan, I never heard of it, so I didn't know much about it. I had to find out about Uzbekistan, about Tashkent. I had to find out about Pakhtakor. But Pakhtakor, as it turns out, it was the only club from Uzbekistan who played in the Soviet First Division. Okay. And they also a few times they had a team that could also challenge for the first position. So more or less it was the team of Uzbekistan. So they had that advantage. When Uzbekistan became independent, it was always from 91 till now, Pakhtakor, it was always one of the contenders. And yeah, the last 2 years before we came, it went a little bit down. The previous owner, let it slip a little bit. A new owner came in. It was the first time a private owner did it instead of government. And he wanted to restore, and he brought in Shota. Shota made his team of coaches. He made his team of players, and I was one of the coaches. He asked to come, and I don't regret it. We have a very good international coaching team. We can work very well. Everything's here, so the results are there. We have a nice team. A lot of international Uzbek players. A lot of football in it.
Yeah.
So we like to compare us a little bit with the Guardiola teams. That's the way we want to play. So
Cool.
that's nice. And at this level, it's possible to do that. So we enjoy it. It's nice. It's good. We do it with a lot of pleasure.
Did you know Shota previously from his time in Dutch football?
No, strangely enough, not. Although we both were at Ajax and at Rangers, we were at different times at these clubs. So we first time we met was in Tashkent.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how it went. Yeah.
I think a lasting memory for a lot of Rangers fans, and hopefully I'm not alone in saying this, one of the main memories that we'll always have of Shota is him dancing. So when you see him next, you can be sure to ask him to give you a wee jig around the table. See if it gives as much hilarity to you as it did over here.
I will. You have a special Georgian dance? Is that the one you mean?
Listen, it may be a special Georgian dance, and if I've insulted anyone, I certainly don't intend to. So we're just about there now. A couple of last wee questions for you. If there's anything that you would have changed, or is there rather anything that you would have changed in your career that you've done, whether it's leave a club early or take a different opportunity or a different route, what would that be, do you think?
To be honest, I'm very happy about the way everything went. I've never had a bossman, so that's maybe something that would have been better. I had some opportunities to go to one of the top clubs in Holland. It would have been nice if that could have come true, because that's what every boy who plays in Holland, who lives in Holland, wants to play for Ajax, Feyenoord, PSV. That's normal. But I played for Rangers, great club. I won medals in Belgium. We had a very good team in Japan. Played the All-Star games there. It was great. So no, I have no regrets. I played for the national team at the height of their capacity, at the form. So no, it was good. It was good. The one thing I'm now working at is to become as good as possible as a manager, and that's also very interesting. That's even more interesting, maybe even than just being a good player, because a manager is so much aspects that you have to understand, that you have to be able to handle. You have to read the situations, so it's very complicated. But that's also the challenge to understand all these kind of things. And most important as a manager, I think, is as a coach, is that you have to help players. And I have a lot of joy in that. I have a lot of joy when a young player at Pakhtakor is selected for the national team here.
Yeah.
So that's always, it gives me the biggest pleasure, to be honest. And if you win a few medals also, it's also good. But it's not a bad life. It's okay.
Indeed. So listen, before we let you go, is there any words that you'd like to give for the Rangers fans who are listening? A wee hi to them.
Yeah, of course, especially to all the people I know, of course. I know they're fanatic about their club. They always will be, and that's what I appreciate a lot. That's what I got from them. So Rangers results always the first one I'm looking at as well. But I'm sure in the next few years there will be a championship again for Rangers. The way they gradually built the club now, the team, I think it will not take long before the championship go back to Rangers. And Shota and myself, if we're still here in Uzbekistan, we will make a nice party if it happens.
You're on.
And otherwise we do it somewhere else. But as Shota as well, we both have the club in our heart, and we will always follow it. So we wish everybody well.
What we'll do for that party is that I'll get myself and my colleagues at This Is Ibrox, and we'll gladly make the trip to Uzbekistan for that party.
Okay, very good. We do that.
Okay, Peter, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on the podcast tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Peter. Thanks.